There is a sleeping power inside you, a power so ancient and so wise that it crossed millennia being passed down in silence, from master to disciple. Inside monasteries, no one entered without being invited. And the most striking thing isn't the age of this knowledge. It's that it never depended on anything external. Not an expensive medicine, not a complicated ritual, not someone with a special gift you have to go find. It depends on one single thing, and it's with you right now as you listen to me, yourself. For centuries, Buddhist monks kept this as a sacred secret because they understood something the modern world has forgotten entirely. They knew the true healer was never on the outside. And look at what's happening now. And this is what lets me speak to you with peace. Modern science, with its instruments, has begun to confirm what those men already knew sitting on the floor 2,500 years ago. That your breathing, your thoughts, and your emotions speak directly to your body. And that this conversation genuinely changes how you fall ill, how you recover, and how you age. But before I open the first door with you, I want to ask something of you. And it is already one of the 10 practices you'll learn today. So you begin before you even begin. There's an ancient teaching that says, the kindness leaving you must pass through you first, and that's why whoever blesses is always the first to be blessed. So do this with me now. Go down to the comments and write the name of someone who needs healing today, with a word of strength for that person. It could be your mother who's been unwell. It could be a friend going through a difficult treatment. It could be a child carrying a heavy soul. It could be yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that, because many people have forgotten they deserve it too. Write something like, for my mother Maria, may she find health and peace. And now the most beautiful part. After you write, scroll through the comments and reply to someone, saying only, may peace reach that person, and may it reach you too. That's all. Because when 200 people wish healing on one another at the same time, down here, each of them leaves a little lighter than they arrived. One candle lights another without ever losing its own flame. And before we go on, I need to tell you something with complete honesty, because wisdom that deceives isn't wisdom, it's something else. Everything I'm going to teach you here are practices of breathing, attention, eating, and care that genuinely support your well-being. And I'm not exaggerating when I say they change lives, but they walk alongside your doctor's care, never in its place. If you have an illness, if you're in treatment, if you take medication, continue. Continue all of it. No breathing technique replaces what medicine offers you, and anyone who tells you otherwise is playing with your life. What I offer you is something else, and it's enormous. It's what you can do for yourself while everything else happens. It's the ground where all the rest works better. With that agreement made from the heart, let me tell you what's ahead. There are 10 ancient practices, and I'm going to hand them to you through 6 doors, one at a time. And you'll notice they all lead to the same place. The first of them is the simplest of all, and probably for that reason the most ignored. You do it 20,000 times a day without paying any attention, and it's the one that opens all the others. They say that whoever masters their breathing masters their mind, and whoever masters their mind changes their life. And I know breathing seems like the most ordinary thing in the world, because you've done it without thinking since the first second you arrived here. But pay attention to this. It's precisely the most sacred act you perform every day, and you pass through it distracted. Every inhalation is life entering you. Every exhalation is the release of what no longer serves. And yet most people live breathing on autopilot, short and shallow, up in the chest, as if life were passing by without being truly lived. And there's a physiological reason this matters so much. The way you breathe is one of the few things you can control deliberately that speaks directly to the part of your body you can't control. It's a door between the conscious and the involuntary. It's as if you had access to the control panel of a room nobody ever enters, and almost nobody knows that door exists. The monks discovered this centuries ago, without any instrument, simply observing their own bodies in silence for decades. And today's science describes the same phenomenon in other words. Breathing deeply and slowly calms the nervous system, helps regulate heart rhythm, lowers stress markers, and activates brain areas linked to the sense of safety. Notice what that means in practice, because it's enormous. When you're afraid, the body breathes short and fast. But the two-way street exists. When you deliberately breathe slow and deep, the body understands the danger has passed. You are literally sending your organism the message that you're safe, and it obeys. That's why this is the first of the 10 practices and the foundation of all the others. Because a body in permanent alert repairs nothing, it only defends. And a body that truly rests frees energy to do what it has always known how to do on its own. You don't need to heal your body. You need to stop keeping it at war. So do it with me now, right where you are, because there's no use knowing without experiencing. Drop your shoulders. We're going to do the breathing that monks and warriors alike use to stay calm in the middle of chaos, known as square breathing, because it has 4 equal sides. Inhale through the nose, counting to 4, slowly filling the belly and not just the chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold the air inside for another 4, without tension, just feeling. 1, 2, 3, 4. Release through the mouth, very slowly, also in 4 counts, letting the weight of the day leave with it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now stay in the emptiness, with no air, for another 4, without hurry and without fear. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you've just completed 1 cycle. Do 3 or 4 more in a row and notice what changes. Your shoulders drop on their own, your thinking slows, and a stillness appears that wasn't there a minute ago. This is free, works anywhere, and nobody around you notices you're doing it. And there's a deeper reason this practice is the first door, and it goes beyond the body. Breathing is the only thing that always happens in the present. You can't breathe yesterday's air, nor breathe tomorrow's ahead of time. It exists only now. So every time you bring your attention to your breathing, you're pulled back to the only place where life actually happens, and where any transformation can begin. And look why that matters so much. Most of your suffering isn't happening in this instant. It's in the memory of something that already passed, or in the fear of something that may never come. In this exact second, with you sitting or lying there listening to me, things are probably fine. Breathing is the rope that pulls you back to that simple realization. So make it your point of return. On hard days, on nights when the chest tightens, in a waiting room, in the middle of an argument. 4 counts. That's all. And now that the body has calmed, we can look inward, because that's where the second door is, and it's the one that frightens people most when they finally see the truth. Your mind is a garden, and every thought you sow in it is a seed that sooner or later will bear fruit. If you sow fear, you harvest anxiety. If you sow gratitude, peace blossoms. That sounds beautiful written that way, but I want you to see the uncomfortable side of that image, because that's the side that actually changes something. Most people spend their entire lives planting with no awareness of what they're planting. They repeat dozens of times a day phrases they don't even notice saying, "I can't handle this, it always happens to me, I'm just like that." It won't work out. And then they're astonished to live surrounded by suffering, like someone who plants thorns and is surprised by the lack of flowers. And here's the detail almost nobody sees. You don't hear those phrases as opinion. You hear them as information. When someone outside tells you you're not capable, part of you doubts it. But when it's your own voice saying it, inside your own head, you believe it without question. Because it sounds like the truth and not like a sentence. And what happens in the body when this repeats daily is more concrete than it seems. Every thought comes with a physical response, and you've felt this 1,000 times without calling it that. Remember an old humiliation and your face grows warm. Think about a bill coming due and your chest tightens. That isn't imagination. It's the body reacting to a scene that isn't happening. And when destructive thought becomes the pattern rather than the exception, the body starts living in that contracted state all the time. Science associates that chronic stress with inflammation, poor sleep, impaired digestion, and lowered immunity. Whereas when thoughts are calm, intentional, affectionate, the whole system slows down, and energy is left over for the body to do maintenance. So notice the simple logic. Your body is always listening to your mind and acting accordingly. It doesn't distinguish well between what's real and what's remembered. And the question the monks asked is the one I ask you now. Are you cultivating flowers or watering weeds every day without noticing? And the practice for this is simple and fits into the middle of any day. The next time that voice appears saying, "I'm not enough," you're not going to fight it, because fighting a thought gives it strength. You're going to do 3 things in this order. First, you stop and take 1 breath, the breathing we just learned. Second, you name what's happening, saying inwardly, "This is only a thought, not a truth." Notice the brutal difference between "I'm not enough" and "I'm having the thought that I'm not enough." In the first sentence, you are that. In the second, you're the one observing it, and the observer is never swallowed. And third, you answer with compassion, not with forced correction. There's no use shouting, "I'm wonderful," if you don't believe it, because the mind rejects it. Say something true and gentle, "I'm learning." And that's enough for today. Every time you choose a seed that nourishes instead of one that destroys, you're slowly rewriting the chemistry your body will live in over the next few hours. And that brings me to the third practice, which is the hardest of all for almost everyone: self-love. And I'm not talking about the shallow version printed on a t-shirt. I'm talking about something concrete. Stop for a moment and pay attention to how you speak to yourself during the day. Notice how many times you judge yourself, demand from yourself, compare yourself, and require a perfection you'd never require of someone you love. That harsh voice inside your head is a poison that works slowly, dimming your vital energy every day. And the worst part is that it disguises itself as discipline. Now imagine the opposite for a second. Imagine speaking to yourself with the same tenderness you'd offer a child who just fell. No lecture, no list of errors, only comfort. Can you feel the size of the difference that would make inside your chest? Buddhism teaches that all suffering comes from forgetting one's true nature. So loving yourself isn't selfishness, it's memory. It's remembering who you are beneath all the layers life has glued onto you. And the practice of self-love also has a concrete gesture, because without a gesture it stays a pretty idea. Every morning, before anything, you're going to look at yourself in the mirror. But not that quick way of checking your hair. Look into your own eyes, even for 3 seconds, and hold the gaze even when you want to look away, and you will. And then say out loud 3 sentences. I deserve to be well. I am worthy of care. I am learning to take care of myself. And look, there's no problem at all if you don't believe it at first. You probably won't believe it, and you may even find it ridiculous, and that's completely normal. Because what's looking back at you in the mirror in those first days is the old habit. and it doesn't surrender its place without resisting. But a word spoken aloud, with intention, repeated with consistency, wears that habit down the way water wears down stone. Do it 21 days in a row and watch. Because nobody can bloom in ground where they feel rejected, and you've been trying to bloom in hostile ground for far too long. And when you finally become your own refuge, everything else in your life starts to arrange itself. And there's something the ancients understood that we've completely lost. The body is a messenger, and pain is the language it speaks. Pay attention to this, because it changes how you listen to yourself. When something hurts persistently and without clear explanation, the first step is always medical, and that isn't up for debate. But after that, when the tests find nothing and the pain continues, it's worth asking the question nobody asks. What am I carrying that I've never set down? Because the body has a memory of its own. It keeps what the mouth didn't say. It hardens the shoulder of someone who has held up a family alone for years. It tightens the stomach of someone who swallows what they'd like to answer. It locks the jaw of someone who sleeps angry every night. None of that is punishment, and none of it is your fault. It's communication. It's the most loyal part of you trying to warn you in the only way it knows that something needs to be looked at. So the next time it hurts, along with caring for the body, ask this question in silence. What is this pain trying to tell me? Sometimes the answer arrives immediately, and it changes everything. Eating isn't merely a physical act. It's a form of conversation with life. Every food you choose, prepare, and bring to your mouth literally becomes part of you within hours. The calcium in your bone was once earth. The water in your blood was once rain. There's no real separation between you and what you eat. There's only an interval of time. And yet, look at how we do it today. Eating in a hurry, standing up, distracted in front of a screen, chewing 3 times and swallowing, tasting nothing. And in that disconnection, we lose something no diet gives back. The monks teach that eating with awareness is a deep spiritual practice. And pay attention, because it isn't about counting calories or following a diet. It's about honoring the life that sustains you. It's recognizing that inside every forkful there is sun, earth, water, and air transformed into living substance, and that someone planted it with their hands. When you eat without presence, the body tenses and digestion locks up. When you eat with gratitude, the body relaxes and truly absorbs. So do it differently at your next meal, and I want it to be today, not next week. Before you start, pause for 10 seconds and really look at your plate. Give thanks to the soil that gave that fruit, to the hands that planted and harvested, to whoever prepared it, and to the life that allowed it to reach you on a day when many people have nothing. Then chew slowly. Feel the flavor. Feel the temperature. Feel the texture. And pay attention especially to this. Stop when you're satisfied, not when you're full, because there's an enormous difference between the two, and the body signals the first one clearly if you're listening. Science shows that eating calmly improves digestion, aids nutrient absorption, and reduces anxiety. But there's something no instrument measures. When you eat with full attention, the meal becomes a silent prayer. And every conscious forkful is a way of telling life, thank you for inhabiting me. Because caring for what enters you is one of the most concrete proofs of self-love there is. And that brings me to the 5th practice, and it's the most underestimated of all, sacred routines. Mind and body are like 2 rivers running together, and if one is polluted, the other sickens with it. That's why one of the most powerful ways to awaken your recovery energy isn't some exotic technique. It's a sequence of small daily acts, repeated with attention. And I know that's a bit disappointing, because we want the grand secret, the hidden method that changes everything at once. But the truth is that real healing lives in the basics. Sleeping well, drinking clean water, moving your body with joy and not as punishment, breathing deeply before the day starts, giving thanks before sleep. Each of those seems too small to matter, and that's exactly why they're ignored. But when you do them with awareness and not on autopilot, they stop being chores and become medicine. The Buddhist said the body is precious because it's the vehicle of awakening, and that it should therefore be cared for with attention. He was talking about simple things, and there's a reason those small gestures work so well, and it's biological. Your body runs on rhythms, and it loves predictability. Sleeping and waking at similar hours helps regulate hormones that govern everything from appetite to mood. A few minutes of morning sun adjusts your internal clock and lifts the mood of your entire day. A glass of water on waking gives the body back what it lost overnight. One conscious breath before getting out of bed sets the tone for all the hours that follow. None of it is impressive in isolation, but repeated over weeks, the effect is cumulative and visible. So try this experiment for 21 days, and it's easy. Before sleeping, turn off the phone, drink a glass of water. Take 3 deep breaths, and give thanks for the day you lived, even if it was hard. At first it will seem insignificant, and you'll want to skip it. But little by little your body understands the message it's been waiting years for, that it's no longer alone, that finally someone is listening. And then it starts to cooperate. And I need to prepare you for the first 21 days, because wrong expectations are what make good people quit in the first week. In the first 2 or 3 days, probably nothing spectacular will happen. And that's exactly when most people abandon it. Maybe you'll just sleep a little better, which is a real effect and no small thing. Around the 5th day, the first real change begins, and it's subtle. You catch yourself reacting differently in a small situation. Someone answers you rudely and you don't fire back. You notice your hand reaching for the phone and it stops halfway. You look at your plate before eating without having planned to. They're almost invisible movements, and it's easy to dismiss them. But pay close attention to them, because they're proof that something has shifted inside you. And here's what is not a sign, so you don't fool yourself. It isn't about waking up healed. It isn't about no longer feeling pain. It isn't about life becoming easy. The true sign is always the same. You crossing a difficult day with a serenity you didn't have last week. And it's with the body like that, listened to and regulated, that we can open the 4th door, and it takes us outdoors. We've forgotten something essential, and that forgetting charges a high price. We belong to the earth. And that isn't poetry. It's literal. Every cell of your body is made of the same minerals that once formed mountains. The water running in your veins was once river, once rain, once sea. The air entering you now is passed through the lungs of trees that existed before your great-grandparents. You aren't separate from nature, looking at it from outside like someone visiting a museum. You are nature in human form. But in the modern world, we surrounded ourselves with concrete, with screens, and with artificial noise, and disconnected completely from the pulse of life. And that disconnection has a price. And you probably already feel it. Anxiety with no apparent cause, tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, insomnia, that strange sense of being out of place without knowing why. Buddhism teaches that when you separate from the earth, you fall ill. And that recovery begins the instant you remember your origin. That's why returning to nature isn't a luxury for people with spare time. It's a necessity, and it doesn't have to be a trip, doesn't have to be a mountain, doesn't require anything expensive. Walking barefoot on grass for 3 minutes, placing your hand on the trunk of a tree and feeling the texture, feeling the sun on your skin early, before it gets hot, letting the wind hit your face without hurrying inside. These gestures sound silly written this way, but they rebalance something in you that life between walls throws off. Science points in the same direction. Spending around 20 minutes a day in contact with nature is associated with reduced blood pressure, improved mood, and lower stress markers. But there's something there no study captures, and you felt it. That specific peace that appears when you look at the sky and remember, without words, that you belong to something larger than your problems. So make it a ritual. Sit beneath a tree, lean your back against the trunk, close your eyes, and say in silence, "I am home." And the seventh practice is the most powerful of all 10, and also the most misunderstood: gratitude. And I need to clear up the misunderstanding first, because it ruins everything. Gratitude isn't resignation. It isn't pretending everything's fine when it isn't. It isn't accepting the unacceptable with a smile. Gratitude is a correction of focus, and that's what makes it so powerful. Because your brain has an ancient specialty, inherited from when we lived in caves, it scans the environment looking for what's wrong, what threatens, what's missing. That saved our species. But today, with no predator nearby, that same ability makes you sweep your whole life looking for defects and finding them. Every day. Gratitude is the exercise that trains the mind to also see what's working, what's whole, what's already yours. You aren't lying to yourself. You're finally seeing the complete picture, and not just its torn corner. And the practice fits into 2 minutes before sleep, and I suggest you start today. Take a notebook or simply place your hand on your chest and do it mentally. It works the same. And list 3 things you feel grateful for today. The only rule is to be specific, because generic doesn't move you, and what doesn't move you doesn't stick. Grateful for life doesn't count. It's too vague. This counts. The conversation I had with my daughter on the phone. The hot coffee this morning while the house was still asleep. The fact that my body carried me where I needed to go today. Do this 21 days in a row and notice something curious. Around the second week, you start noticing good things during the day, in the moment they're happening, already thinking they'll go on the list. That means your attention has changed direction. And that's when gratitude stops being an exercise and becomes a way of seeing. There's no energy more healing than that of a heart that can say thank you, even when not everything is perfect. Because giving thanks was never about denying the pain. It's about recognizing that despite it, life is still a gift. And it's that opening of the heart that leads us to the 5th door, the hardest one to cross. The 8th practice is letting go of the ego, and that's the narrowest door of all, because nobody likes looking at it. The ego is that voice inside you always wanting more recognition, more control, more guarantee. It's the part that fears losing, that compares, that needs to prove its worth in every conversation. And here's the sentence that sums it all up. The ego wants to be right. The soul only wants to be at peace. Notice how many times you've chosen being right and lost your peace. That argument you won and then felt awful about all week. That message you fired back immediately, sharp, that cost you an entire relationship. Buddhism teaches that the ego is the root of suffering, and the logic is simple. As long as you believe you are your results, your possessions, or other people's opinion of you, your peace will depend on things outside your control. And then life becomes a race with no finish line, where no matter how far you go, something is always missing. And there's a very specific practice that weakens the ego, and it's surprising in its simplicity. Service without an audience. Do something for someone expecting nothing in return, and above all, without telling anyone afterward. Listen to a person all the way through without interrupting, without already preparing your answer while they speak, which is harder than it sounds. Help someone seeking no recognition at all. Buy someone a coffee and don't mention it. That small gesture does something powerful inside. It dissolves, for a few moments, the illusion of separation, that sense that there's me on one side and the rest of the world on the other. Because when you help in silence, receiving no credit, you do it for the act itself and not for the image. And detachment, mind you, never meant losing. Detachment is gaining room for what truly matters. It's remembering that your worth doesn't depend on what you deliver, but on who you are when nobody is watching. True greatness was never in having more. It's in needing less. And the ninth practice is born naturally from that: compassion, one of the highest frequencies a human being reaches. Compassion is looking at another's pain without judgment and recognizing in that pain a part of yourself. Because the truth is that nobody heals alone, and every time you help someone lift a weight, you lift your own too. The Dalai Lama says that whoever wants to be happy should practice compassion, and science points the same way. Acts of kindness are associated with the release of oxytocin, improved mood, and better cardiovascular markers. Helping doesn't only improve the life of the one who receives, it measurably improves the life of the one who gives. But pay attention to this order, because it's crucial and almost everyone inverts it. Compassion doesn't begin with the other, it begins with you. Nobody can offer true comfort while living at war with themselves. So the first step is self-compassion, embracing your own mistakes, your own shadows, and your own wounds with the same tenderness you'd offer a dear friend. And there's a question that completely transforms your relationship with the difficult people in your life. And I want to hand it to you now. The next time someone wounds you with a word, before reacting, take one breath and ask inwardly, what unresolved pain is acting through this person right now? That's all. That question changes everything, because it turns offense into understanding and resentment into peace, without you having to pretend you liked what you heard. Notice that this isn't excusing anything, isn't accepting abuse, isn't staying where you're hurt. You can still walk away. You can still set limits, and sometimes you should, but you do it without carrying the poison with you. And that's the difference between leaving a situation free or leaving it poisoned for years. The monks teach that every compassionate act is a silent medicine, a kind gesture, a word of encouragement, a sincere listening, things that spread like ripples in water far beyond what we can see. Compassion is a bridge between souls, and it heals both sides of the bridge at once. And now we reach the last door, and it's different from all the other 9. The 10th practice is different from all the others, because it isn't learned, it's remembered. And the reason is simple. There's no greater power than the one already living inside you since day one. Let me prove that with something ordinary. Think of a cut on your finger. You don't have to give your body any order for it to close. You can't explain how new skin is made. You have no idea which cell calls which, and yet within days it's closed. There's an intelligence working in there that is infinitely older than you and never needed your permission. It repairs broken bone, fights infection, regulates temperature, and makes thousands of adjustments per second while you worry about other things. And the ancient teaching says this, that same intelligence caring for the physical also sustains the emotional and the spiritual when we stop getting in the way. The problem is that we forgot how to trust. We look outside for answers that can only be found in the silence within. And here I need to be very clear, because this is the part where many people get hurt by misunderstanding. Trusting your body does not mean dismissing your doctor. It never did. If you have an illness, a diagnosis, a treatment underway, you continue, and you continue rigorously. Your body's intelligence and medicine are not enemies. They're allies. And anyone who makes you choose between them isn't helping you. They're putting you at risk. What I'm telling you is something else. And it's what you can do while all of that happens. You can stop being one more burden on your own body. Because an organism living in alert, poorly slept, poorly fed, poisoned by self-criticism and constant stress, spends all its energy defending itself. Little is left for repair. Whereas a body that rests, that breathes, that receives care and kind words, frees that energy for the maintenance work it has always known how to do. You aren't going to heal yourself by force of thought. You're going to stop sabotaging the process, and that is enormous. And now I want to give you something that isn't a technique. It's shelter, because there are nights when no practice is enough, and you simply need words that hold you. In every ancient tradition there exists the same kind of prayer, the prayer of refuge, the one recited when fear comes in through the window and won't let you sleep. And I wrote one for you, to be said tonight, lying down, in the dark, in a low voice. It goes like this: May I rest in the shadow of something greater than my fear. May the terror that walks at midnight find no open door in me. May the worry that circles my house not sleep in my bed. Though 1,000 things fall around me, and some will fall, may none of them topple what I am inside. May my steps be guarded on the stony path. May I be shelter to whoever arrives weary, and may peace find me awake. Repeat that prayer tonight, word by word, feeling it, and pay attention to what happens in your chest at the third line, because that's almost always where something loosens and the breath finally reaches the bottom. And the day will come when you won't want to practice any of this. So I want to prepare you for it now. It'll be a bad day, one of those when everything weighs, and a voice inside you will say, "This is useless. Look at my life." And here you are breathing. That voice comes to everyone, without exception, and it usually arrives precisely when you most need the practice. And here's what to do, and it's the opposite of what your will is going to ask for. On bad days, you don't do more, you do less. But you do. If you can't manage 20 minutes, take 3 breaths. If you can't write 3 gratitudes, write 1. If you can't walk, open the window and feel the air for a minute. Because what builds isn't the intensity of one day, it's the unbroken chain. And if one night you simply don't do anything, don't turn that into failure, because what kills any practice was never failing once. It was the shame after failing, which makes people abandon everything so they don't have to face it. Fall and come back the next day, quietly, without a lecture. That's how anything lasting is built. Stop with me for a second here, because what we've crossed through today is the kind of thing that arrives at the right moment for someone. And I'm certain there's a person in your life who needs to hear it right now. Think of them really, that person going through a hard treatment, whose eyes have grown tired. That friend who lost someone and can't sleep properly anymore. That mother who takes care of everyone and never has a minute for herself. That relative who speaks badly to themselves, demands too much, and has already convinced themselves they don't deserve rest. Send this video to them now, before you continue. And I ask that for a reason that fits everything we've seen. Remember the teaching that kindness must pass through you before it leaves? When you send these words to someone who's suffering, you light that same flame inside yourself in the very instant you offer it. You lose nothing, and the other person may gain everything. Send it and come back, because the closing is still ahead. And now I want to return to what I asked of you at the very beginning, because only now do you understand that it wasn't a channel request. It was the 10th practice happening. Remember I asked you to write in the comments the name of someone who needs healing, with a word of strength for them? If you wrote it, look at what happened. To wish health on someone from the heart, you first had to access the wish for health inside yourself. You practiced compassion before I explained what compassion was. If you haven't written yet, go down and write now. It takes 20 seconds, and it's the cheapest and most powerful gesture in this video. And then do the second part, the one that multiplies. Reply to someone down here, saying only that peace reach that person and reach you too. Because here, right now in these comments, there are hundreds of people asking for healing for someone they love, and each one believes they're carrying it alone. When one replies to another, nobody stays alone in the dark. And that's how one candle lights the next without ever losing its own flame. So now you know, and let me gather it all up for you to keep. There is no secret outside of you, and there is no external force coming to rescue you. The 10 practices we crossed today are 10 doors leading to the same place, your own interior. The first, conscious breathing, which calms the body and brings you back to the present. The second, care with the thoughts you sow every day. The third, self-love practiced at the mirror, with words spoken aloud. The fourth, eating with presence and gratitude. The fifth, simple routines repeated with attention, which become medicine. The sixth, the reunion with nature, which is remembering where you came from. The seventh, gratitude as a correction of focus. The eighth, releasing the ego and practicing service without an audience. The ninth, compassion, which begins within and overflows. And the 10th, trusting the intelligence that has been working in you since before you were born. Notice something? None of them costs money, and none of them depends on anyone but you. And I need to repeat with all my care the honest agreement we made at the start, because true wisdom has never deceived anyone. All of this genuinely supports your well-being, and supports it a great deal, but it walks alongside your doctor's care, never in its place. If you have a diagnosis, a treatment, a medication, continue all of it, and take these practices as companions rather than substitutes. And if at some point the weight you carry becomes too great to bear alone, if the pain of the soul moves from discomfort to something that steals your will to continue, please seek someone prepared to listen to you, a health professional, a therapist, a support service, someone you trust. Asking for help contradicts nothing we discussed today. Quite the opposite. It's the deepest act of self-compassion there is. And it's exactly what a person who has learned to love themselves does for themselves. You don't have to cross alone what was never meant to be crossed alone. And now to close, 3 quick things, and each is part of what you learned here. First, if you haven't written yet, go down and write the name of whoever needs healing today, and reply to someone saying that peace reach them and reach you too. Second, share these words with the person you thought of, because a message arriving at the right moment sometimes changes the course of an entire day, and sometimes far more than that. And third, if these words resonated with you, leave your like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, and don't close it yet, because the videos appearing on your screen now continue this conversation. And take this with you, and it's the last thing I want to tell you. The sages taught that healing isn't adding anything new. It's remembering what you already are. Because you are not your pain, you are not your past, and you are not your wounds. You are the strength that can cross through them. And that strength doesn't need your permission to exist. It only needs you to stop doubting it. Choose one of the 10 practices. Just one. and begin today. Tomorrow, you choose another. May peace be with you, and I'll be waiting for you at our next meeting.